This liquid resembles a high-quality restaurant milkshake. It has that perfect, heavy, creamy thickness. But here's the crazy part. In fact, you can create that thickness with room temperature milk if you mix it with a tiny pinch of, well, we'll get to that in a few moments. Meanwhile, this is your homemade milkshake. You use premium ice cream, you use whole milk, but 3 minutes later, it's cold flavored milk soup. Why does the fake stuff hold up better than the real stuff? Because restaurants know something you don't. They aren't relying on ice cream for thickness. They're using chemistry. And in this video, I'm going to show you the hack and the science behind the secret methods restaurants use, and how 1/8 of a teaspoon can turn your homemade flavored milk soup into a legendary milkshake. Before we fix the chemistry, let's respect the history. Because before the milkshake was the ultimate symbol of youth and the centerpiece of a Friday night date, the milkshake wasn't even a sweet treat kids could drink. It was a prescription for patience. Now, to know where the modern milkshake came from, we have to go back to 1885. Back then, a milkshake wasn't even a dessert. It was a tonic made of whiskey, eggs, and dairy. Now, going into the 1900s, people swapped the whiskey for chocolate syrup, the eggs for ice cream, but the real revolution didn't happen until 1922. A man named Stephen Poplawski invented the electric blender, specifically for soda fountains. This machine changed everything because it allowed soda jerks to blend the hard ice cream into the milk mechanically. It whipped air into the mixture, creating that frothy, thick texture we know today. But as the industry shifted to fast food in the 1950s, well, they hit a wall. Real ice cream melts too fast for drive-thrus. So, to save the milkshake, they had to rethink the recipe. Fast food chains needed their shakes to stay the same consistency every time. They couldn't have a shake turning into flavored milk soup before the customer even drove home. So they stopped relying on ice cream, and they started engineering legendary milkshakes. They introduced stabilizers to control the water. Now, for a legendary milkshake mix, you won't just see ice cream and milk. You will see a stabilizer blend making up about, well, less than 1% of the total weight of the shake. It sounds tiny, but that tiny percentage of a stabilizer was a game changer for milkshakes and the world of desserts. These stabilizers gave so many different desserts that silky mouthfeel that coats your tongue. Well, while fast food engineers were mastering chemistry, home cooks were left in the dark. We kept trying to make shakes the old-fashioned way, and that's exactly why we keep failing. Knowing the physics of a failed milkshake is understanding that ice cream is an emulsion. When it's frozen solid, ice crystals act like the structural beams of a building. They hold up the roof of the milkshake, so to speak. But the second you put that ice cream in a blender, you are destroying them. You are adding heat by friction. And you guessed it, by adding that heat, you are melting the ice crystals. And once that ice turns into water, it wants to do what water does best, flow. Why? Because water has no structure. So even if you use a ratio of 99% ice cream, as soon as those ice crystals melt, the texture collapses, and you lose the structural beams holding up the roof of your milkshake. You aren't fighting a recipe, you are fighting thermodynamics, and you will lose every time. To win this battle, you have to introduce the stabilizers restaurants are using. Specifically, two powdery heroes, Gunnar gum and xanthan gum. And no, these aren't scary synthetic chemicals. Gunnar gum is just a ground up bean, and xanthan gum is made by fermenting sugar, kind of like yogurt. But what they do to water is like magic, but it's just simple chemistry. By binding water molecules together to create a network that traps air bubbles and fat droplets so they can't float away. Now, what's happening here is a property called shear thinning. Think of it like ketchup. When ketchup is sitting in a bottle, it acts like a solid. But if you hit the bottom of the bottle, applying force, it suddenly flows. These stabilizers do the same thing. When the shake sits in your cup, it locks up. but the second you apply force with the straw, it relaxes into a liquid. Now, how do you know if a milkshake has been properly stabilized? You just need to look for 3 specific signs. First, look at the pour. You want to see those nice folds as the milkshake is being poured into the cup. Second, there's the famous spoon test. In a watery shake, the spoon falls right over. But in a stabilized shake, the spoon will stand straight up in the center. And finally, the melt test. If you leave a normal shake on the counter, it separates. But a stabilized shake, well, that turns into a thick, uniform mousse. We are going to make a traditional vanilla milkshake. And once you know this base, you can add in other flavors, chocolate syrup, strawberries, swap ice cream, or whatever you want. Go milkshake crazy, experiment, and have fun with it. But you have to have a solid foundation before you can build from it. And remember, you need precision here. We are mixing with science in mind. So here's the golden ratio and secret technique for legendary homemade milkshakes. Step 1, add a half a cup of whole milk to your blender. Step 2, add an 1/8 teaspoon of Ganar gum. This gives you that ultra creamy heavy body. And if you can't find Ganar gum, xanthan gum works too, but Ganar gum works a little bit better with cold desserts. Step 3, the secret technique. Blend the milk and whatever gum you're using on low for 10 seconds to create a vortex. You must hydrate the gum before adding the ice cream. This technique helps activate the powder, also creates less friction time for the ice cream. Step 4, now that the stabilizer is hydrated, drop in 4 scoops, about 1 cup of vanilla ice cream. And if you're a vanilla lover, drop in a couple drops of vanilla extract for the extra vanilla flavor. Blend on high just until smooth. You don't want to overblend and make a vanilla mousse. So, there is a warning using these stabilizers. Please respect the ratio. If you use too much, the texture of your milkshake turns, well, snotty. It feels slimy and stringy in your mouth, and no one wants that, so stick to the 1/8 of a teaspoon. And when you hit that ratio just right, the result is, well, you got it, that legendary homemade milkshake. It coats your mouth with that perfect silky texture.
God damn, it's a pretty f***ing good milkshake.
It holds its chill. It feels like a shake you paid $10 for at a boutique burger joint, but you made it in your kitchen for pennies. And you didn't need a commercial machine. You just needed to stop trusting the ice cream and start trusting chemistry.
Crumble up the chocolate into little pieces. Then you kind of stir it into the ice cream.
Now that you have the golden ratio, 1.5 cups, about 12 ounces of liquid base, and an 1/8 of a teaspoon of stabilizer, and the secret technique, you can start making restaurant quality milkshakes at home. So go make some legendary milkshakes you can brag about.